was misdiagnosed, of course, with just general depression and severe anxiety. And then I went through my early 20s taking the wrong type of medication, which kind of worsened my mental state.
Sure.
I think a lot of the times when you are in these spaces, you tend to want to isolate.
Okay.
And I think that's where art kind of came into play and became such a powerful and pivotal element in me expressing my true feelings. There's no sense of weakness or lack of masculinity in not being able to communicate your feelings. I find it so irritating that men will vocalize and vocally complain about, I am so depressed, I have no one and I have nothing, but they will ignore communicating those feelings to their closest friends. They would rather drink those feelings away, or they would rather fight those feelings away, as opposed to just doing the most human thing and communicate.
Don't hold back, say it loud.
What's up, everybody? My name is Nozibele Qamngana Mayaba. Welcome to Don't Hold Back. This is where we say it loud. We are on season 2. Thank you so much for your support. Now, let's talk about mental health, anxiety, depression. We must be very honest that in some communities, this is very much frowned upon. We're still having difficult conversations around understanding what mental health is. You know, I was reading a story recently where a pregnant lady committed suicide because they could not understand what was wrong with her. They did not understand that she was struggling with mental health. Today I'm very excited because we are hosting South African artist, apparently is known as the African Ginger. I want to know the story behind that. Please welcome Seth Pimentel.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming through. Seth, before we get into the topic for today, we have a segment of the show where I ask a guest to bring a snack. Now, don't tell me the story behind the snack, but just tell me what you brought.
I got a lunch bar.
Okay, that's quite interesting. And I'm going to need a story behind it, but we'll talk about it much later on. Right. So, Seth, I was talking about mental health and how it's still very much misunderstood. You know, when I was doing my own research about your own journey and how you have basically embraced your journey and your experience and expressed it through your own art. But let's take it back. Should I be asking what triggered this whole journey? Are there certain traumas that you went through while growing up or still going through that triggered, your own mental health struggles?
Well, firstly, mental health is genetic.
Yeah.
So as much as, there are certain elements of trauma or life experiences that can trigger certain responses, for the most part, it is part of your genetic makeup.
Okay.
So having a father that suffered with anxiety, my mother experiencing quite a traumatic childhood. These elements kind of combined it and, led me to experience type 2 bipolar, which is, it's fun, not really.
What are some of the early, experiences of thinking to yourself, there's just something that's off?
I mean, if I can be really honest with you, it was fantasizing about a lot of darker themes, and not darker themes in the sense of what I would do to others, but more on what would be done to me, fantasizing on dying, being 7 years old and really obsessed with the idea of death and what it means and the impact death will have on my family and my relatives, For me, I was no 7-year-old should, at the time you just don't know because you're not really vocalizing these thoughts or you're not really vocalizing your interactions with people. But only when I got to high school that I realized that that's just weird. People don't do that, and then, I got diagnosed, but I was misdiagnosed, of course, with just general depression and severe anxiety. And then I went through my early 20s taking the wrong type of medication, which kind of worsened my mental state.
Sure.
So only until recently, within the last year, that I've been properly diagnosed.
So all this time you were incorrectly diagnosed and you were taking not the medication that you should be taking?
Yeah, well, I actually stopped taking medication as a whole because of my misdiagnosis, because it was just so intense,
Was it heightening the whole,
I mean, yeah, some medications would have a negative effect on my body, some would have a negative effect on my mental health. So I would take an anti-anxiety, but that anti-anxiety would actually spark more depressive episodes. It was like a cycle. But I'm happy where I'm at now,
That's good. I'm happy to hear that.
For sure.
Did you, I mean, I can only assume just in general when you're facing challenges or when you're going through something, having a support system that is good kind of gives you that assurance, you know, or kind of makes you be in a good space.
For sure, like having a structured support system is vital. But I think a lot of the times when you are in these spaces, you tend to want to isolate.
Okay.
And I think that's where art kind of came into play and became such a powerful and pivotal like element in me expressing like my true feelings. You feel that when you kind of communicate your feelings of suicidal thoughts or depressive episodes, that you're burdening your family or you're burdening your friends or you're just not.
I get you.
Yeah, so you just kind of make art about it, and that's what I did for like the entirety of my life, It was like I felt isolated from that. I couldn't communicate that, so I made art about it,
And when did the journey with art start? And how did it start? Were you just painting?
It's actually a funny story. It's
Yes,
actually a really
please.
funny story. I was maybe 6 years old. Yeah, I was 6 years old, and 9/11 just happened.
Oh.
And it was a very traumatic event for like a lot of people. And one of my clearest memories from that age was being, taken to creche and us having to create how that event made us feel.
Okay.
And I did this really terrible drawing, and I hated it. And I remember my creche teacher was, taken aback by it and loved it. And she gave me a little gold star. And I think from that moment, I've always wanted to create work that kind of evokes or communicates a certain feeling. But I didn't know that at the time. I think I was just creating work for validation.
Yes.
So that was the beginning of my career. So I could say I started at like 6, worked and drew and stuff, and I got into the National School of the Arts where I was, exposed to other people my age that were more open with their mental health and more open with their feelings and their sexuality as well. And from there going to university and now working as a full-time professional artist, It's just all part of the journey.
Okay, let's take it back a bit. So it's just a manner of, seeking validation, draw this picture, the teacher likes it, and how did then it evolve in terms of, oh, wait a minute, I could actually make a career out of this?
Never thought about making a career out of it.
That's where I'm going.
Society told me from the jump that I'll never have anything from this career, but it's an itch in the back of my mind that I couldn't scratch, that I never belonged in a corporate space. I had a job for like 7 days and I got fired, I never expected to have a career from it. You're always told from a young age that there's no money in art,
Yes.
you're gonna starve to death, you're not gonna make it. So I always thought to myself that I'm just, just gonna live on my mom's couch and just try and figure shit out, or couch surf, or I don't know,
Yeah.
just do something. And yeah, social media happened, and now being an artist is one of the most promising careers one person can
Right.
take, which is ironic, but it's cool.
What do you mean about social media? What happened? Did you start showcasing your art there?
Yeah, I mean, like I think everybody started showcasing their work. I think in the earliest spaces of social media, especially early Instagram, like 2013, 2014 Instagram, was solely dedicated to kind of communicating artistic expression. Instagram wasn't just this monetary valued space where, you just take pictures for the sake of posting for brands. It was actually like posting pictures of your interests or sharing your music or sharing your art. It was a real platform that actually was focused on creative expression. So I think it's a pro and a con, because having Instagram at that age or that time, you were sharing your work and you were interacting with thousands of people from different places of the world. As time progresses, you just build like a community and you build an audience, and you fast forward and then you have like a bunch of followers and you're verified on Instagram, and social media played a big role in defining a lot of artists' careers. A lot of people are, here because of social media.
Yeah.
There's nothing
And
wrong
how
with
they
that.
used
It's pretty rad,
Yeah. Now let's be honest and realistic, right? Someone who's watching this, you've reached a certain level of success. through your art journey. But we have to be realistic that there is an artist that's there that's still struggling to get to the success that you've had. Looking back, would you still advise someone to go through or explore this career path, a young person that is passionate about it, but it's still not sure? I mean, we come from very disadvantaged homes. We don't have the opportunity or the platform or the chance for us to explore. Do you get what I mean? We need to go to university or whatever, get a job and take care of our families. But there's that itch, there's that urge, you know. So if you had to speak to someone, would you still say they can explore? And if they do, how do they get it right?
There's no right or wrong answer. There's also no right way to do it. I think the most important thing to do is that if you can't breathe without it, don't do anything. A friend of mine just moved back from Thailand, and he was working as an English teacher for 7 years. And he said to me he felt so unfulfilled with doing what he did. He followed the path, you know, he did the university route, or he got the job that paid, you know, he did all the right things to secure a good life, and when he came out of it, you know, he just hated it.
Yeah.
You know? It's about the passion. It's also your life. Don't live it for other people's sake. Don't, you know. I mean, it's easier saying this because I've been living my life for myself. I stopped living my life for my parents a long time ago. But that's also because I fought for that.
Yeah.
And I had to really break a lot of generational curses in order for me to live this life of mine. But not like that. What I'm trying to say is that it's doable if you want to make a career out of art. You just need to work 24 times better. Like, you don't work 9 to 5, you work 24/7. You have to be willing to take on really bad jobs that pay you like 2,000 Rand. And then there's jobs that's going to pay you 70,000 Rand. You have to be willing to take on these jobs. You're going to have to be willing to fight for your life.
And if you want it bad, you're going to have to make it work.
You will make it work.
Yeah.
You will. But a lot of people I think that's what defines an artist from just someone that's interested in art.
Yeah.
If you're interested in art, you'll always be like, ugh, I like art, but you know what? I can always just become like a pediatrician. An artist will always create no matter what.
Yeah.
You know, it's who they are. It's not a phase. It's not an aesthetic. It's not a trend. It's who you are. It's quintessentially what you want to do. So if you really are an artist, you'll find a way to make your career work.
Let's talk about your expression in art, and also just the element of, you know, dealing with mental health and pouring your heart out, and using art as a way, as a coping mechanism, if I can say that. But I'm quite interested because, for example, when I'm not an artist, I just like really nice art that looks nice. But how do you find the balance with the art not looking so dark, considering, you know, you may not be in the best space when you were making that art?
I mean, it's just expression. You know, it being dark is just what you were feeling at time and space. You should never make art to fit a certain aesthetic.
I like that.
Or to fit a certain bracket. You just pigeonhole yourself.
I like that.
You just put yourself in a little bubble. Art is, like I said, it's expression. You're meant to create as much as you can. There was a conversation a few artists were having about the idea of aesthetics, and that if an artist creates a certain aesthetic and is consistent with that aesthetic, does that become a style? Yes, it does. But also an artist can create dozens of works that aren't aesthetically relevant and completely different from each other, but still quintessentially be good and still be a style because they're from the artist. So when you're creating work, don't worry about making something dark or making something light. Or if you're creating work and you want to speak to an audience, that piece was meant to, even if it was meant to relate to one person, it's doing its job, you know. So don't worry about aesthetics, just keep on making. You know.
Nice. Seth, before we continue, I just want to play a quick game with you. We'll call it rapid fire questions.
Okay, cool.
So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Don't think too much about it. 10 seconds or less.
Okay.
Okay. So first question, which comic superhero would you be?
Batman.
Okay. Where do you go when you're battling to come up with ideas?
Documentaries. Oh, where do I go?
Yeah.
Documentaries. I don't leave my apartment. So I go watch a documentary.
Okay. That's where you get your inspiration from.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your power food for a tired brain?
Cigarette.
Okay. You're the first artist sent to show aliens human art. Which tools would you take? Spray cans, brushes, or pencils?
Spray cans.
I knew that was going to come to. Last question. Which world famous artwork do you wish you had made?
Walking with Death by Jean-Michel Basquiat.
I have no idea what that is. Tell me more about it.
Just before Basquiat had an overdose, he created an art piece. Andy Warhol had passed away, and he was dealing with the concept of death quite heavily. It's actually a very eerie topic. It was one of the last artworks he made before he died.
Okay.
And it's a picture of a skeleton riding another skeleton with these brown hues in the background. And it's just one of the most powerful paintings I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
But not only because of what the theme is, but it's eerie because after creating that artwork, he died. So it's like, did he manifest his death or did he predict it? You know?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but if I could, I would have 100% made that. That or no, probably that. Yeah.
Seth, I want to ask, do you feel we have addressed mental health, particularly when it comes to how it affects males in South Africa, or just generally, actually, not only in South Africa?
You know, to be honest with you, I'm kind of tired of this conversation of, men be like, oh, men's mental health is an issue. Men should communicate with each other about our issues. There's this constant thing that I see on TikTok where it's like, male loneliness has increased by 63% and male suicides are like the highest in the world. Like, I understand these statistics. I am a man. I know what it's like. But men also don't want to communicate their feelings. Go to therapy, my guy. Go take meds. If you can afford to, do it. If you can't afford to, communicate with your friends. There's no sense of weakness or lack of masculinity in not being able to communicate your feelings. I find it so irritating that men will vocalize and vocally complain about, I am so depressed, I have no one and I have nothing, but they will ignore communicating those feelings to their closest friends. They would rather drink those feelings away, or they would rather fight those feelings away, as opposed to just doing the most human thing and communicate. Just communicate. Yes, I know we suffer with mental illness. I have bipolar. I suffer with battling suicidal ideas, but I go to therapy. I take meds. Yes, it's not cheap. I budget for it. I put a large amount of money away for my therapy per month and for my meds, It's not easy, it's not cheap, but it's vital. It's what makes me function in society easily, So yeah, I hear this all the time, and I think people always want to feel like a sense of pity for men because like, oh, shame, like, damn, like he's going through so much. I am a man. I am going through it. Just vocalize your feelings. Women have a tendency to do that, Women are vocal with their feelings towards each other.
Yeah.
And why can't we do the same thing?
Yeah. And that's the only way it's going to change.
And
because
also, like,
literally I can't do anything about it.
Yeah, and I can't trauma dump on my girlfriend, you know what I mean? Like, every time I'm feeling upset, I vocalize all these things to my partner. She's not my therapist. You know what I mean? I have to seek professional help if I want to get better. I can't get into a relationship, trauma dump on my partner, expect her to fix all my problems.
Yeah.
It's just.
I think what I'm getting is there's a level of being proactive about you
Right.
and also
100%.
prioritizing yourself.
100%.
And taking responsibility
100%.
of your own health.
100%.
That needs to be there. And that's how we change the narrative.
Because like I can tell you now, prior to going to therapy, I was on the same breath. I was very like, it sucks being a man. There's so many social pressures. There's so many small nuanced experiences that we have to go through that we don't ever experience. We don't ever get to vocalize.
Yeah.
We just say it is what it is. And then I started going to therapy, and I'm like, oh, dude, nah, man. Like, it's not what it is. You don't have to say it is what it is.
Yeah.
You can actually say, damn, that actually affected me in a negative light, I'm not comfortable with that. And move on from it or work it through,
Yeah. No, I love that. I really, honestly, the proactiveness, taking responsibility for your own health, and that's how we change the narrative once again. So
Right.
just before we get into the snack, there's one more question that I wanted to ask. You work with a lot of brands, like big brands.
Right.
But still, what will be your ideal or dream project?
To create my own Air Max 1 with Nike.
Okay.
Yeah, it's my favorite shoe, it's my favorite silhouette, and I've been working very closely with Nike for a couple of years now.
Nice.
Fingers crossed that I can actually do this project one day.
Nice.
Yeah.
You know why I like the particular brand and also excited about that potential project? I'm going to say potential project. Is because there's also a level of storytelling that comes with such a project.
I don't know if you know
right?
Karabo Poppy, right?
No.
I don't know. She's an amazing South African illustrator, and I'm privileged enough to call her like a very close friend.
Yes.
But she is the only African to have designed her own sneaker for Nike. She designed a whole series of silhouettes for the Air Force One.
Wow.
So there was like multiple combinations of like, it was Nike ID. So she had like set designs, and you could combine these designs to create your own sneaker.
Yeah.
But it was customizable through the Nike ID website. So there was like dozens of possibilities that you could create your own sneaker.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it was still her work. And like no one ever speaks enough about like how amazing and how impactful that project was, not just on her, but the South African illustration community as a whole, you know?
Right.
So yeah, after her doing that, I feel like it's such a big possibility for a lot of other, even younger South Africans to do amazing projects. You know?
Yeah. Seth, I think I was excited about interviewing you and the session because definitely time has evolved. You know, we've gotten away from the sort of corporate traditional career path. Now someone that is, sitting at home listening to us or watching this is like, actually, I can still make a career out of
For sure,
this.
you can make a career out of anything.
Because you know where we come from. Honestly, I quit my corporate 9-to-5 job to work in the development space, you know, NGO, social responsibility, and it was frowned upon. It's like, what the hell are you doing? Why would you do that?
You're losing security over
exactly that
passion or something.
Exactly that. I even remember my mom saying, you're going to lose your medical aid, or like what kind of security are you getting from this? So yes, there is a level of passion, but also I think what I'm getting from this is working hard to make sure that still sustains you.
Also being structured, like
Correct.
having the passion, but also knowing like, okay, like for me, I'm a freelancer. I don't earn the same amount of money that I would every month. Some months I earn amazingly. Other months I don't earn much.
Correct.
But I can balance my finances out and I can work out. This is how much my medical aid is. This is how much my rental is. This is how much my life insurance is, you know? These small things that you can still take care of yourself without having to have a 9-to-5, you know? It's just working smart and being structured.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing, because I think we all get caught up in the fantasy and the amazing part of like, you've been doing this on your own and this is amazing, but then there's also like a big level of like responsibility that you have to take, you know, like just being careful.
I love
and
that.
like
there's a
taking care
level of
yourself.
structure that still needs to be there, even with your passion.
Even with your passion. I think more so
Yes,
than ever.
right?
With a corporate job, you don't have to be structured. You don't, I mean, you can, but there's already structure in place. But when you're doing your own passion, you're doing it for yourself, and you can easily just.
And I can imagine
get
also
lost,
the level of
you know?
discipline that is required.
It's a lot.
It's more.
It's a lot. It's really tough.
Listen,
But it's worth it.
Yeah. No, listen, you are inspiration to me, and I definitely know someone that is watching and listening to this. Okay, so listen, you bought a lunch bar. What's the story with the lunch bar?
It just reminds me of after school. When I would like kind of walk home from school and I'd stop at the tuck shop in my neighborhood, I would buy like a lunch bar, or my sister would buy me a lunch bar, and then we would go home and I would sit and watch Dragon Ball Z and draw Dragon Ball Z while eating this lunch bar. So
I love that. Okay, are we gonna share a lunch bar?
we can share it.
Let's do this. Okay, I'm gonna do a piece for me, literally a small piece. Do you wanna cut?
For sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's also my favorite. I don't want to say.
Yeah, I was very like, oh, I don't like them. They got nuts and stuff. And then I just decided to actually have one. But it wasn't like these long ones. It was more like the really small
Yes,
ones.
yes.
So always those like really small ones. You get like 2 of those, and you're just like in your bag.
Gosh, it does taste good. After not eating anything sweet for a couple of days, that does really hit the spot, hey?
Yeah, it does.
Seth, once again, thank you so much for coming through. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for
Thank you
having
for telling us your journey, and I wish you that project.
Thank you so much.
I want that
really-
project for you. I want that, and when you get that project, I want you back to tell us all about it.
No, for sure.
Thank you
For
so
sure.
much, Seth.
Thank you, guys.
Guys, that is where we leave it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Please catch this episode and many other episodes wherever you get your podcast. This podcast has been in collaboration with DW, Jacaranda FM, and East Coast Radio. Until next time, my name is Nozibele Qamngana Mayaba. Bye for now.
Don't hold back. Say it loud.